Ladies and gentlemen, let's end the week. It is Community Radio Networks on this Friday. It is the 12th of April. Welcome to the show this morning. We have all the information ready for you to take on the day, and it is coming up for you right here, right now. We'll have the financial news. We'll have some stories from the annals of history that happened on the 12th of April. We'll have your social calendar, but we'll start first with the world news coming up. This is Community Radio Networks, the world news read by Shabnam Madgil. A major player in the Middle East politics, Iran generally projects its power through a network of ideologically aligned allies and non-state groups, a network that styles itself the axis of resistance. These groups include the Houthis of Yemen, the Hamas of Palestine, the Hezbollah of Lebanon, and the Shia militia factions like Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq, plus Bashar al-Assad's government in Syria. The actors fall on a spectrum ranging from hardcore IRGC loyalists and proxies like the two Hezbollahs to autonomous but often dependent partners and allies of Tehran like Hamas, the Houthis, and the al-Assad regime. The U.S. Middle East envoy is calling on the foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and Iraq to ask them to deliver a message to Iran urging it to lower tensions with Israel following a suspected Israeli airstrike on Iran's embassy in Syria. White House Middle East Czar Brett McGurk asked the officials to contact the Iranian foreign minister to convey a message that Iran should de-escalate with Israel, which they did. And Iran's foreign ministry said the foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Iraq spoke on the phone with Iran's foreign minister and discussed regional tensions. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said Israel must be punished, and it shall be, for the Damascus strike that killed 7 Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps members. And among them was Mohammad Reza Zahidi, a senior commander in the Quds Force, an elite overseas unit of the Revolutionary Guards. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in a call with the Israeli Defense Minister, made clear that the U.S. would stand with Israel against any threats by Iran. The U.S. has said it had restricted its employees in Israel and their family members from personal travel outside the greater Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and Beersheba areas amid Iran's threats to retaliate against its regional adversary. The Israeli Prime Minister's office has said that Hamas keeps walking away from a deal that will secure a Gaza ceasefire. Meanwhile, Russia has advised against travel to the Middle East, and German airline Lufthansa extended a suspension of its flights to Tehran as the region was kept on edge by Iran's threat to retaliate against Israel for that attack in Syria. Russia and Germany urging countries in the Middle East to show restraint, and Israel said it was preparing to meet all its security needs in a region on edge over an Iranian threat to strike Israel. Russia, Germany, and Britain also urging countries in the Middle East to show restraint, and Israel said it was preparing to meet all its security needs. France has warned its citizens to imperatively refrain from travel in the coming days to Iran, Lebanon, Israel, and the Palestinian territories. FBI Director Christopher Wray has voiced significant concerns to a House of Representatives panel about the potential for a coordinated terrorist attack in the U.S., akin to the tragic incident at a Russian concert hall last month that resulted in the death of at least 144 people. O.J. Simpson, the former NFL star and broadcaster whose athletic achievements and fame were eclipsed by his 1995 trial in the brutal killings of his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman, has died of cancer. He was 76 years old. A post from the Simpson family said that on the 10th of April, our father, Orenthal James Simpson, succumbed to his battle with cancer. He was surrounded by his children and grandchildren, and during this time of transition, his family asked that you please respect their wishes for privacy and grace. Prostate cancer diagnosis was made public about 2 months ago. Pro Football Hall of Fame President Jim Porter said that in a statement the Hall of Fame player had received chemotherapy treatment. While Simpson was a highly decorated athlete, winning the 1968 Heisman Trophy as a senior running back at the University of Southern California before playing for the NFL's Buffalo Bills and later the San Francisco 49ers, he became perhaps one of the most controversial figures of the late 20th century after he was charged with the murders of his former wife and her friend. A jury found him not guilty in a trial that saw America's fascination with celebrity collide with its centuries-long struggle with race, as well as issues of class, policing, and criminal justice. Those themes and the judge's decision to allow the trial to be televised coalesced in what many called a trial of the century that held the country's attention in a vice grip for nearly 9 months before evolving into a cultural touchstone. Kansas City chief wide receiver Rashee Rice was involved in a multi-car crash in Dallas 2 weeks ago. He has finally surrendered to the police as promised and is free on bail. Turned himself in yesterday to the Glen Heights Police Department and then taken to the DeSoto jail. Bond set at $40,000. Dallas police issued this arrest warrant for the 23-year-old and 21-year-old Teddy Knox also for this hit-and-run crash on North Central Expressway last month. Following 2 trials and years of delays, a former Richardson mayor is now behind bars. Former Richardson mayor Laura Maxa Jordan is now serving 6 years for bribery, tax fraud, and conspiracy at a medium-security prison near Tallahassee, Florida. She was known as Laura Maxa when she was mayor of Richardson and was convicted of federal corruption and bribery charges in 2021. While she was mayor, she was having an affair with Plano developer Mark Jordan, who is now her husband, and voted in favor of zoning changes to help benefit the company, and the feds called it a case about sex, money, and betrayal. Coming Monday, Donald Trump will again make history, becoming the first former president to go on trial on criminal charges. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg has charged Trump with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in an effort to hide a $130,000 payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels. And the payment was made to keep her quiet about an alleged extramarital affair she had with Trump prior to the 2016 presidential election. And while the payment of hush money is not itself a felony, it rises to that level when done to enable other crimes, such as violating tax and campaign finance laws. U.S. officials met secretly this week with members of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's administration to keep him engaged in negotiations over democratic reforms as a deadline nears to reinstate sanctions against the nation's oil industry. And Mexico is calling for Ecuador's expulsion from the United Nations for violating diplomatic norms by raiding its embassy in Quito last week. The Mexican government is also seeking a formal apology as it brings the case to the International Court of Justice. House Speaker Mike Johnson is negotiating with the White House as he prepares for the treacherous task of advancing wartime funding for Ukraine and Israel through the House. And a hulking Soviet-era power plant on the outskirts of Kyiv was completely destroyed by a Russian hypersonic missile in a large-scale attack against Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Power facilities were hit in 5 regions across the war-torn country as Moscow unleashed a barrage of more than 80 missiles and drones yesterday. Russian President Putin said the airstrikes were part of the Kremlin's demilitarization of its neighbor. Russia has started to make steady progress against Ukraine as Kyiv's forces face dwindling ammunition supplies, much to Ukraine President Zelensky's frustration. And in response to the increasing threat posed by Russian missiles and drones, UK military chiefs are fast-tracking the deployment of a new laser weapon system known as Dragonfire onto the Royal Navy warships. And this initiative reflects a broader push by the UK to enhance its defensive capabilities with cutting-edge technology. French President Macron has called on his country's defense industry to permanently increase arms production in light of the war in Ukraine. And a leader of Austria's far-right Freedom Party has distanced himself from Moscow in the course of investigations into suspected Russian espionage in Austria. Belgian Prime Minister announcing today an investigation into suspected Russian interference in Europe-wide elections in June, saying that his country's intelligence service has confirmed the existence of a network trying to undermine support for Ukraine. And Peter Magyar, who's seeking to take on Hungary's nationalist Prime Minister Viktor Orban, said his bid to register for European Parliament and municipal elections has been approved. He couldn't register a new organization because he's entering the race too close to the vote. Instead, he filed to compete in the June 9th ballots as part of the already existing but virtually unknown Respect and Freedom Party. Dozens of Russian military instructors have arrived in Niger as part of a new accord with the country's junta, which has cut links with its Western allies. They arrived along with the state-of-the-art air defense system and expected to install the system and teach Niger's army how to use it. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Community Radio Networks. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is urging Americans to support their country's continued leadership on the world stage during a speech delivered to a joint session of Congress yesterday, a message that comes as pivotal foreign aid has stalled in the halls of Congress. A $95 billion aid package to support Ukraine, Israel and Taiwan hangs in the balance in the House after passing in the Senate in February. A growing number of conservative lawmakers have balked at sending additional aid to Ukraine, and some liberal lawmakers are expressing concerns over offensive aid to Israel. President Biden said he was committed to deepening maritime and security ties with Japan and the Philippines as he sought to assure allies worried about increasingly assertive Chinese actions in disputed waters. The U.S. defense commitments to Japan and to the Philippines are ironclad, he said before a meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. at the White House for the first trilateral summit among the nations. The U.S. commitments to the defense of Japan and the Philippines there was reinstated by President Biden. Beijing criticized the U.S., Japan and Philippines and defended its actions in the South China Sea as lawful after President Biden hosted this trilateral meeting in Washington yesterday, pledging to defend the Philippines from any attack in the South China Sea at the White House summit, which came amid repeated confrontations between Chinese and Philippine vessels in the disputed waterway that have raised fears of wider conflict. There's no reason for China to overact to the joint maritime patrol by the U.S., Japan, Australia and the Philippines in the disputed South China Sea, said a White House advisor. And China announced rare sanctions against two U.S. defense companies over what it called their support for arms sales to Taiwan, the self-governing island democracy that Beijing claims as its own territory to be recovered by force if necessary. The announcement freezes the assets of General Atomics Aeronautical Systems and General Dynamics Land Systems held within China and bars the company's management from entering the country. The unusually harsh death sentence given to the real estate tycoon in Vietnam was a pivotal moment in the decade-long Blazing Furnace anti-corruption campaign as the Vietnamese business community wrestled with an uncertain future. Real estate tycoon Trong My Lan, who was sentenced to death yesterday by a court in Ho Chi Minh City for orchestrating the country's largest ever financial fraud case, was one of Vietnam's most important business people for years. She's been convicted for fraud amounting to $12.5 billion, nearly 3% of the country's 2022 GDP, and for illegally controlling a major bank and allowing loans that resulted in losses of $27 billion. Vietnam typically gives death penalty crimes like terrorism or murder, and according to Amnesty International, has among the highest rates of capital punishment worldwide, but a death sentence for a financial crime is rare in the country. Hundreds of refugees crossed over the river frontier between Myanmar and Thailand today, following the fall of a strategic border town to rebels fighting Myanmar's military junta. Some said they feared airstrikes by the Myanmar military after the rebel capture of Mayawadi, a town of around 200,000 people lying across the Moi River from the Thai city of Mysore. The Indian Navy is significantly upgrading its capabilities at INS Kadamba Karwar on the western coast, making it the largest naval base east of the Suez Canal. This strategic expansion allows the base to host the Navy's largest warship, the 44,500-ton INS Vikramaditya, formerly known as Admiral Gorshkov. And six-time world champion boxer MC Mary Kom has announced today that she was left with no choice but to step down from her role as India's chef de mission for the next Olympics in Paris. The president of the Indian Olympic Association, P.T. Usha, declared that Mary Kom had written to her requesting to be removed from her role. Aam Aadmi Party leader Atishi today slammed Bharatiya Janata Party over Arvind Kejriwal's arrest and accused the centre of plotting a conspiracy to impose president's rule in Delhi. "Let me warn the BJP that imposing president's rule in Delhi will be illegal," she said, unconstitutional and against the mandate of the people of Delhi. The people of Delhi have given a clear mandate to Arvind Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party. Meanwhile, BRS MLC K. Kavita, daughter of former Telangana Chief Minister, was arrested by the CBI in an alleged excise policy scam. CBI will produce her in the Delhi High Court today, and she faces charges including money laundering and influencing witnesses. The National Investigation Agency has arrested 2 suspects from Kolkata in connection with the Rameshwaram cafe blast on the 12th of April. The sleuths arrested Abdul Mateen Taha and Musawwir Hussain Shahzeb from their hideout near the city. The BJP Karnataka has lashed out at Congress government and Chief Minister Siddaramaia's ease of doing terror policies and have prompted ISIS to set up a shop in the state. At least 10 people were injured in this incident that had taken place on the 1st of March. The arrest of these 2 accused in the Bengaluru cafe blast case from West Bengal has triggered a political slugfest between the ruling Trinamool Congress and the BJP. And Amit Malviya, BJP's social media head and central observer for the state, claimed the arrest showed how West Bengal has become a haven for terrorists. Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee reacted sharply to his remarks and blamed the BJP for spreading canards against the state. Gopi Chand Thotakura is set to make history as the first Indian to embark on a journey into space as a tourist. He will join a 6-person crew aboard Blue Origin's New Shepard mission, embarking on a journey that will take them beyond the Earth's atmosphere. He's a skilled pilot and co-founder of Preserve Life Corporation, a holistic wellness center in Atlanta, and has an impressive aviation background. Delhi Capital's bowling unit will have to punch above its weight against an informed Lucknow Super Giants, who will start as overwhelming favourites in an IPL match today. And wicketkeeper Tom Blundell and uncapped all-rounder Zach Folks have been added as late call-ups for New Zealand's 2020 tour of Pakistan. They will respectively replace the promising batter Finn Allen and veteran paceman Adam Milne, who were both injured on the eve of departure. Pakistan hosts New Zealand for 5 2020 internationals starting in Rawalpindi next Thursday as both teams tune up for June's T20 World Cup in the United States and the West Indies. President Zardari, in a phone call with his Iranian counterpart Ibrahim Raisi, has underlined the need in enhancing the exchange of information to overcome the security challenges being faced by both countries. The two held a telephonic conversation and exchanged greetings on the occasion of Eid. United Nations human rights experts have expressed dismay at the lack of protection for women and girls belonging to the minority communities in Pakistan, saying that they remained vulnerable to forced marriages and conversions. Christian and Hindu girls remaining particularly vulnerable to forced religious conversion, abducting, trafficking, child early and forced marriage, domestic servitude, and sexual violence. This, according to the experts in a statement that was issued in Geneva yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the world news for you. I do have your financial news coming up in just a minute.
Never knew you were the sun.
Your financial news for today, and it is the 12th of April today. We'll start with the foreign currency exchange rates. We have the Indian rupee at 83.52. Now, the Maldives is currently discussing with India if the island nation can make payments for its imports from the country in Maldivian rupiah. A similar arrangement is also being worked out for imports of goods from China, and the Maldives imports goods worth $780 million and $720 million from India and China, respectively. And they are asking for it to be paid in Maldivian currency. Pakistani rupees at 277.88, Bangladeshi taka at 109.77, Sri Lankan rupee 298.35, Nepalese rupee 133.68, the British pound at 0.80, the euro at 0.94, Canadian dollar 1.38, Australian dollar 1.54, Mexican peso 16.64, the Chinese yuan at 7.24, and it is the Japanese yen at 152.64. Japan has warned that it will consider all options to combat weakness in the yen after the currency slumped to its weakest level against the dollar since 1990, following weeks of flirting with the closely watched 152 level versus the greenback. The yen blew straight through this mark and all the way as U.S. inflation data reverberated through global markets. Russian ruble at 93.15, the Thai baht at 36.49, and the Turkish lira at 32.35. U.S. stock futures have stumbled this morning as techs lost their winning ways, with investors looking for inspiration in the big bank results rolling into kickoff earnings season. Futures on the tech-heavy Nasdaq 100 slid 0.5%, while S&P 500 futures shed 0.4%, and the contracts on the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.3%. Stocks stumbling after the Magnificent Seven techs led a run higher yesterday, propelled again by the artificial intelligence tailwinds. U.S. equity futures have fallen as investors studied earnings from some of Wall Street's biggest banks, capping off a busy week for traders marked by a sharp retracement in wages on interest rate cuts. Hot U.S. inflation data has put the Federal Reserve's debate over the first interest rate cut on a potential collision course with the presidential election calendar, although a parade of top-level Fed-watching economists also predict the Fed won't make its move until after Americans go to the polls. Oil resumed gains to end the week's trading as Israel braced for a potential strike by Iran. Brent approached $91 a barrel against a backdrop of heightened geopolitical risks, and the U.S. and its allies believe a major missile attack by Iran or its proxies is imminent in retaliation for an Israeli strike on its embassy compound in Syria. Oil prices steady near 6-month highs after rising by $1 a barrel in the prior session as investors brace for this potential attack on Israeli interests by Iran, which is OPEC's third largest oil producer. President Biden announced today he would be canceling debt for more than 277,000 borrowers, forgiving $7.4 billion for borrowers in more than 40 states in the latest debt relief program, bringing the total amount of student loan cancellation over his presidency to $153 billion. BlackRock has posted a rise in first quarter profit today as a rebound in global equity markets bolstered the company's investment advisory and administration fees, reporting record assets under management of about $10.5 trillion in the first quarter, and posted a 36% jump in profit today as a rebound in global equity markets boosted its investment advisory and administration fees. Wells Fargo profit fell 7% in the first quarter, as reported this morning, as it became more costly to pay customers for deposits and demand from borrowers has declined. Still, adjusted profit of $1.26 per share came ahead of analyst estimates of 1.11. Profits of JP Morgan Chase have risen 6% in the first quarter to $13.4 billion, beating Wall Street expectations. And the previous day, Apple promised it would stop a Palestinian flag emoji from being suggested to some iPhone users when they typed Jerusalem in messages. The Silicon Valley tech titan blamed a software bug for that prompt, which sparked accusations that Apple was showing anti-Israel bias amid the ongoing conflict in Gaza. A growing number of drugs are in short supply around the U.S. In the first 3 months of the year, there were 323 active medication shortages, surpassing the previous high of 320 shortages in 2014. Alongside its $1.50 hot dog and soda combo, gallon tubs of mayonnaise, and value packs of socks, Costco, the warehouse retailer, has been selling gold bars since October. And now Costco is selling up to $200 million worth of gold and silver every month. We have Costco selling 1 ounce 24-karat gold bars, according to the online store also. In a move that environmentalists called a betrayal, the Biden administration has approved the construction of a deepwater oil export terminal off the Texas coast that would be the largest of its kind in the United States. The Seaport Oil Terminal, being developed off Freeport, Texas, will be able to load 2 supertankers at once with an export capacity of 2 million barrels of crude oil per day. And this $1.8 billion project by the Houston-based Enterprise Products Partners received a deepwater port license from the Department of Transportation's Maritime Administration this week, and the final step in a 5-year federal review. Flying out of DFW International Airport will soon cost you more if you plan to park your car at the airport. As of the 1st of May, the price of parking at DFW will be going up by as much as $5 a day. Currently, it costs $27 a day to park at any one of the 5 terminals. Coming soon, that goes up to $32 a day. And express parking will also increase by $3 per day to $21 for covered and $18 for uncovered. The National Association of Music Merchants Foundation names a Fort Worth ISD school with Best Communities for Music Education. This would be the 11th year in a row that the Fort Worth School District has won this award, and that demonstrates how Fort Worth ISD can provide music access to education to all students. Naval Air State Joint Reserve Base Fort Worth is hosting its first air show since 2016 this weekend. Wings Over Cowtown takes place tomorrow and Sunday. The U.S. Navy Blue Angels will fly at the end of both days from 3 to 4 p.m. It's always exciting, and it's cool bringing all 6 airplanes plus C-130 and the entire team here to Fort Worth to show the Fort Worth area what the Navy and the Marine Corps are all about. The Blue Angels last flew over North Texas in 2020 to show support for medical workers during the pandemic, and they also flew at the Fort Worth Alliance Air Show in 2019, but last year organizers canceled the event without establishing plans to resume. First, a haunted cafe was announced it's coming to Plano, and we talked about that yesterday. And now Dallas will soon be home to a brand new Japanese steakhouse that pays tribute to some of the greatest warriors from the land of the rising sun. Docent Steak and Lounge, a product of the Dallas-based Harwood Hospitality Group, is an upscale Japanese-inspired restaurant with a samurai theme and will be opening its doors this summer. Docent will take diners on a journey of dining and artistry while celebrating the rich heritage of the samurai. And the menu will include HWD beef from Harwood's exclusive prime-graded Akushi Wagyu cattle, as well as an extensive selection of Kobe beef. And there will also be a sushi bar and other Japanese-inspired accoutrements, plus a massive wine and sake selection. The restaurant will have on display nearly 100 pieces from the Anne and Gabriel Barbier Mueller Museum, the Samurai Collection, which is the only museum in the United States dedicated to samurai art and armor, and one of the largest in the world. It's going to be located in Harwood number 14, their office tower on Harwood Street, and will open this summer. Apple today lost a bid to throw out a massive lawsuit valued at just under $1 billion brought in London on behalf of more than 1,500 app developers over its App Store fees. And the case, worth up to $979 million and one of several faced by the U.S. tech giant in the UK, alleges that Apple charged third-party developers unfair commissions of up to 30% on purchase of apps or other content. Major U.S. airlines and aviation unions urged the Biden administration to pause approvals of additional flights between China and the United States, citing ongoing anti-competitive policies of the Chinese government. It is Airlines for America, a trade group whose members include American Airlines, Delta, and United, and unions in a letter to the Transportation and State Department cited the advantage Chinese airlines receive by continuing to access Russian airspace, while U.S. carriers stopped flying through Russian airspace at the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in March of 2022. The largest U.S. airlines are asking the Biden administration to halt these approvals of new flights between the country and China, saying that the Asian nation's damaging anti-competitive policies put U.S. carriers at a disadvantage. The U.S. has topped longtime leader China as Taiwan's main export market for 4 consecutive months due to a surge in demand for microchip products and the AI technology. Self-ruled Taiwan is a microchip manufacturing powerhouse, churning out the world's most advanced silicon wafers necessary to power everything from e-vehicles and satellites to fighter jets and increasingly to power AI technology. 2024 is shaping up to be the year of travel reprieves, hot on the heels of the European Union postponing its much-mooted ETIAS program, which will require visitors from most non-European Union countries to obtain pre-travel clearance. Brazil has pushed back the start of its new visa system for travelers from the US, Canada, and Australia. However, if this year is the year of reprieve, next year is when everything will hit home. And for travelers from those 3 countries heading to Brazil, it'll hit home, hit their bank balances and require them to share their bank statements too. ETIAS is slated to start in 2025 and Brazil has now confirmed a start date for its visa program. The 10th of April 2025, citizens from Australia, Canada and the US will need a visa to enter the country. And on the plus side, those traveling for tourism or cruise travel can apply for an e-visa online rather than visiting a consulate. BMW's sales of fully electric vehicles at its core brand surged in the first quarter, outperforming rivals like Tesla and Volkswagen, which have struggled to cope with faltering demand. Customer deliveries of battery-powered models have jumped 41% in the 3 months through March compared to the same period last year. The UK has returned dozens of artifacts looted from what is today Ghana, more than 150 years after they were taken. Some 32 gold and silver items have been sent on long-term loan to the country by the Victoria and Albert Museum and the British Museum. They were stolen from the court of the Asante king during the 19th century conflicts between the British and the powerful Asante people. Chinese officials directed the country's largest telecom carriers earlier this year to phase out foreign chips that are key to their networks by the year 2027. The move would impact U.S. chip giants Intel and Advanced Micro Devices. Their shares were down more than 1.5% in pre-market trading this morning. In a landmark achievement for satellite communications, Chinese scientists have developed the world's first satellite capable of enabling smartphone calls directly without the need for ground-based infrastructure. Named Tiantong, which translates to connecting with heaven, the initiative draws inspiration from the biblical story of the Tower of Babel, aiming to bridge communication gaps rather than create them. The Tiantong 1 satellite series, which began with its first launch in 2016, now includes 3 satellites in a geosynchronous orbit at 36,000 kilometers, covering the entire Asia-Pacific region. A revival of tech hiring in the U.S., indicating a recovery in demand, bodes well for the Indian IT companies that have a significant presence in America. Tech companies in America added an estimated 6,000 workers last month, and the presence of Indian IT companies in the U.S. has grown, with TCS employing 50,000 people, Infosys 35,000, HCL Tech 24,000, Wipro 20,000, and LTI Mindtree 6,500. Cigarette maker Godfrey Phillips India today said it has decided to exit from its loss-making retail business 24/7. The board of the company, in a meeting held this morning, decided to exit from carrying out the business operations of its retail business division. Godfrey Phillips India was operating 150 stores and kiosks of 24/7 as of December last year. In the latest report released by the High-Level Policy Commission on getting Asia to net zero, it was revealed that Asia's 4 largest economies could play a pivotal role in expanding the market for green hydrogen electrolyzers. The report is titled Green Hydrogen for Decarbonizing Asia's Industrial Giants and suggests that these nations, China, India, Japan, and South Korea, have the potential to generate a combined market worth $180 billion by the year 2050, primarily catering to key industrial applications. Make in India boost on the cards as India has initiated a thorough examination of its trade agreement with the 10-member ASEAN, focusing on products with higher taxes on input items than on finished goods. And the aim is to address discrepancies that have hindered domestic manufacturing. Japan's Nippon Paint is expanding in the Indian automotive market. The company, which started its global automotive aftermarket paints business from India, is now foraying into car body repair and paint services in order to go deeper into the fast-growing automotive aftermarket business. The UK government is set to implement a new tax regime in April of next year, which will impact non-resident Indians and recent migrants residing in the country. And this change will abolish a 200-year-old feature of the British tax system, potentially increasing the tax burden for individuals and families planning to make the UK their new home. Air India has deployed 5 new contact centers offering round-the-clock assistance to its customers worldwide. The airline has partnered with Concentrix, a California-headquartered customer engagement firm, to manage premium services from centers in Mumbai, Cairo, and Kuala Lumpur, and also signed up iEnergizer to operate contact centers in Noida and Bengaluru, focusing on domestic inquiries. Indian benchmark equity indices, the BSE, Sensex, and Nifty 50 plunged in trade today, with several factors weighing on the stock markets. And we have gold prices surging in today's trading session, surpassing the 72,000 rupee per 10-gram mark, while silver reached 84,000 rupee per kilogram for the first time ever. And these milestones were achieved despite a stronger dollar index, which rose above 105, marking a 1% increase over the past 5 trading days. Shares of Bharati Hexacon listed strongly on the stock exchanges with a 32.45% premium today. And Indian Railways has awarded big steel tenders. Steel Authority of India Limited, Tata Steel, Jindal Stainless Limited, ArcelorMittal, Nippon Steel, and Jindal Steel and Power Limited have secured steel supply contracts for many crores from the Indian Railways. Amar Singh Chamkila, the review giving it 4 stars. Daljit Dosanjh outstanding in this Imtiaz Ali thoughtful and redemptive biopic on the slain Punjabi singer. And we'll talk more about it in a bit. The International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva today said that Pakistan is in discussions with the fund on a potential follow-up program to the previous 9-month $3 billion standby arrangement, adding that important issues remain to be solved. She told an event at the Atlantic Council think tank that Pakistan was successfully completing its existing program with the International Monetary Fund, and the economy was performing somewhat better, with reserves now being built up. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the financial news. I have your last segment of the program coming up in just a minute. Let's get you first some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, which is the 12th of April, way back in 1633. Chief Inquisitor Father Vincenzo Maculani the Firenzuolo, appointed by Pope Urban VIII, begins the inquisition of physicist and astronomer Galileo Galilei. Galileo was ordered to turn himself into the Holy Office to begin trial for holding the belief that the earth revolves around the sun, which was deemed heretical by the Catholic Church. Standard practice demanded that the accused be imprisoned and secluded during the trial. This was the second time that Galileo was in the hot seat for refusing to accept church orthodoxy that the earth was the immovable center of the universe, and he had been forbidden from holding or defending his beliefs. But in that interrogation, he denied that he held belief in the Copernican view, but continued to write about the issue and evidence as a means of discussion rather than belief. The church had decided the idea that the sun moved around the earth was an absolute fact of scripture that could not be disputed, despite the fact that scientists had known for centuries that the earth was not the center of the universe. So this time, Galileo's technical argument didn't win the day, and the church handed down the following order. We pronounce, judge, and declare that you, the said Galileo, have rendered yourself vehemently suspected by this holy office of heresy, that is, of having believed and held the doctrine, which is false and contrary to the holy and divine scriptures, that the sun is the center of the world and that it does not move from east to west, and that the earth does move and is not the center of the world. Along with this order came the following penalty. We order that by a public edict the book of Dialogues of Galileo Galilei be prohibited, and we condemn thee to the prison of this holy office during our will and pleasure, and as a salutary penance we enjoin on thee that for the space of 3 years thou shalt recite once a week the 7 penitential Psalms. Galileo agreed not to teach the heresy anymore and spent the rest of his life under house arrest. It took more than 300 years for the church to admit that Galileo was right and to clear his name of heresy. Happened on today's date in 1633, when Galileo was ordered to turn himself into the Holy Office to begin trial. And then on today's date in 1945, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt passes away, partway through his 4th term in office, leaving Vice President Harry Truman in charge of a country still fighting the Second World War and in possession of a weapon of unprecedented and terrifying power. On a clear spring day at his Warm Springs, Georgia retreat, he sat in the living room with some of his family while the artist painted his portrait, and according to presidential biographer, it was about 1 p.m. that the president suddenly complained of a terrific pain in the back of his head and collapsed unconscious. One of the women summoned a doctor who immediately recognized the symptoms of a massive cerebral hemorrhage and gave the president a shot of adrenaline into the heart in a vain attempt to revive him. And it was Eleanor who died. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who died. Eleanor delivered her speech that afternoon and was listening to a piano performance when she was summoned back to the White House. In her memoirs, she recalled that ride to the White House as one of dread, as she knew in her heart that her husband had died. Once in her sitting room, aides told her of the president's death, and the couple's daughter Anna arrived, and the women changed into black dresses. Eleanor then phoned their 4 sons, who were all on active military duty. And at 5:30 p.m. she greeted Vice President Truman, who had not yet been told the news. A calm and quiet Eleanor said, "Harry, the president is dead." He asked if there was anything he could do for her, to which she replied, "Is there anything we can do for you? For you are the one in trouble now." Indeed, Truman had rather large shoes to fill. FDR had presided over the Great Depression and most of World War II, leaving an indelible stamp on American politics for several decades. He also left Truman with the difficult decision of whether or not to continue to develop and ultimately use the atomic bomb. Shockingly, FDR had kept his vice president in the dark about the bomb's development, and it was not until Roosevelt died that Truman learned of the Manhattan Project. Eleanor threw herself into FDR's funeral preparations. Thousands of Americans lined the tracks to bid FDR farewell, while a slow train carried his coffin from Warm Springs to Washington, D.C. After a solemn state funeral, he was buried at his family home in Hyde Park, New York. And on the 12th of April, in 1954, Bill Haley and his Comets record "We're Gonna Rock Around the Clock." And that, ladies and gentlemen, was done on today's date in the year 1954 on the 12th of April. And we had this recording that was done that time. If rock and roll was a social and cultural revolution, then We're Gonna Rock Around the Clock was its declaration of independence. It was, if Bill Haley was not exactly the revolution's Thomas Jefferson, it may be fair to call him its John Hancock. Bill Haley put his enormous signature on rock and roll history during the final 40 minutes of a 3-hour recording session in New York City, a session set up not for the recording of We're Gonna Rock Around the Clock, but a song called 13 Women and Only One Man in Town, and it took the group nearly all of their scheduled session to get a usable take of 13 Women, a song that was entirely new to them but was chosen as the A-side of their upcoming single by their new record label called Decca. And then, ladies and gentlemen, it was with time running out, that no chance of extending the session, that Haley and his Comets were eager to lay down that song they'd been playing live for many months to enthusiastic audience response. And the lead guitarist brought in for the session had no time to work up a new solo for the instrument break on We're Gonna Rock Around the Clock, so he purposed one he'd used on a Haley recording 2 years earlier called Rock This Joint. Haley and the band had time for only 2 takes, and in the first they played so loud that Haley's vocals were almost inaudible on tape. In an era before multi-track recording, the only solution was to do a second take with minimal accompaniment and hope for the best. That single sold a respectable but underwhelming 75,000 copies in the coming months and was destined to be forgotten until a 10-year-old kid in Los Angeles flipped 13 women and fell in love with the now famous B-side. And that kid, Peter Ford, happened to be the son of actor Glenn Ford, who was slated to star in the upcoming teenage delinquency drama Blackboard Jungle. He turned his father on to We're Gonna Rock Around the Clock, and soon enough the song was chosen to play over the opening credits of Blackboard Jungle, which is how it became a pop sensation, selling 1 million copies in a single month in the spring of 1955. But it was Bill Haley and his Comets that recorded Rock Around the Clock on today's date in 1954. And then on the 12th of April in 1961, aboard the spacecraft Vostok 1, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Alakashvik Gagarin becomes the first human being to travel into space. And during that flight, the 27-year-old test pilot and industrial technician also became the first man to orbit the planet, a feat accomplished by his space capsule in 89 minutes. Vostok 1 orbited Earth at a maximum altitude of 187 miles and was guided entirely by an automatic control system. The only statement attributed to Gagarin during his 1 hour and 48 minutes in space was, "Flight is proceeding normally. I am well." And after this historic feat was announced, the attractive and unassuming Gagarin became an instant worldwide celebrity, awarded the Order of Lenin and given the title of Hero of the Soviet Union. Monuments were raised to him across the Soviet Union and streets renamed in his honor. The triumph of the Soviet space program in putting the first man into space was a great blow to the United States, which had scheduled its first space flight for May of that same year. Moreover, it was Yuri Gagarin who had orbited Earth, a feat that eluded the U.S. space program until 1962, when astronaut John Glenn made 3 orbits and Friendship 7. By that time, the Soviet Union had already made another leap ahead in the space race with the flight of cosmonaut German Titov in Vostok 2, who made 17 orbits and spent more than 25 hours in space. And all this happened on the 12th of April in 1961, when Yuri Gagarin became the first human being to travel into space. And on the 12th of April in 1963, It was Good Friday, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested and jailed for a campaign of protest marches and sit-ins against segregation in Birmingham, Alabama. The actions, orchestrated with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and their partners in the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights, had begun a little over a week earlier. And it was the United Auto Workers that was also involved in this. But it was on this Good Friday, the 12th of April in 1963, that Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested and jailed for a campaign of a protest and paid $160,000 bail, released from jail on the 20th of April. 4 months later, he gave his I Have a Dream speech at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, regarded by many as the high watermark of his movement. And the following year, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which guaranteed voting rights to minorities and outlawed segregation and racial discrimination in all places of public accommodation. In Cambodia, on the 12th of April in 1975, the U.S. ambassador and his staff leave Phnom Penh when the U.S. Navy conducts its evacuation effort, Operation Eagle, as the communist Khmer Rouge forces closed in for the final assault on the capital city. U.S. forces were put on alert for the impending embassy evacuation. An 11-man Marine element flew into the city to prepare for the arrival of the U.S. evacuation helicopters. And it was on the 10th of April that the U.S. ambassador asked Washington that the evacuation begin no later than the 12th of April, today's date, at 8:50 a.m. An Aerospace Rescue and Recovery Service HH-53 landed a 4-man Air Force combat control team to coordinate that operation. And 3 minutes later, it guided in a Marine Corps helicopter with the first element of the Marine Security Force. Marine and Air Force helicopters carried 276 evacuees, including 82 Americans, 159 Cambodians, and 35 foreign nationals, to the safety of the U.S. Navy assault carriers in the Gulf of Thailand. And by 10 o'clock in the morning, the Marine Contingency Force, the advanced 11-man element, and the combat control team had been evacuated without any casualties. This U.S. embassy in Cambodia evacuated on today's date in 1975. And then in 1981, on today's date, the 12th of April, the Space Shuttle Columbia is launched from Cape Canaveral in Florida, becoming the first reusable manned spacecraft to travel into space. Piloted by astronauts Robert Crippen and John Young, the Columbia undertook a 54-hour space flight of 36 orbits before successfully touching down at California's Edwards Air Force Base 2 days later. And NASA publicly unveiled its first space shuttle, the Enterprise, during a ceremony in California a few years earlier. And it is Columbia, with the launching of Columbia, that regular flights of the space shuttle began on today's date, the 12th of April in 1981. And it was in 1986 that NASA and the Space Shuttle program suffered their major setback when the Challenger exploded 74 seconds after takeoff, and all 7 people aboard were killed. The Soviet government officially accepts blame for the Katyn massacre of World War II, when nearly 5,000 Polish military officers were murdered and buried in mass graves in the Katyn forest. The admission was part of Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev's promise to be more forthcoming and candid concerning Soviet history. This admission by the Soviets to the Katyn massacre of World War II happened on today's date in the year 1990. It was in 1939 that Poland had been invaded from the west by the Nazi forces and from the east by Soviet troops, and sometime in the spring that year, thousands of Polish military officers were rounded up by Soviet secret police forces, taken to this Katyn forest outside of Smolensk, massacred and buried in a mass grave. And they admitted to doing that on today's date in 1990. Whether this Soviet admission had any impact is difficult to ascertain. The communist regime in Poland crumbled by the end of 1990, and Lech Walesa was elected president of Poland in December of that year. Gorbachev resigned in 1991, which brought an effective end to the Soviet Union. Some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date, which is the 12th of April. And today, here in North Texas, we see dry and very pleasant weather and into the weekend with highs returning to the upper 70s and 80s. But do expect some breezy south winds every afternoon. You can expect very warm temperatures and occasionally breezy southerly winds. Skies will, starting off, mostly sunny, but clouds will be on the increase into late Sunday. I have huge thanks going out to Discount Power for their support of community radio networks. Also, big thanks going out to Houston EB5, the Ahluwalia Law Offices, the Wyndham Hotel in Irving, Digital X-Force, Kinzer Law, Mai Kolachi, Shri Vimal, Vimal's Venue, Mystic Mandala, as well as Flash Brush Production and Eggholic. For those of you interested in learning music, Shruti Sangeet Academy can teach you Indian classical and vocal lessons by certified classical vocalist and talk show host Shanta Mishra. You can explore the soul of Indian music that they offer, comprehensive curriculum including personalized instruction and an immersion in bhajans, shlokas and folk music. There can be private and group lessons on weekends in East Plano. Learn classical ragas, master vocal techniques, embrace rhythm and tal, experience Indian culture like never before. I'm going to give you Shanta Mishra's number to call her, 612-562-4432. For those that want to teach their children music or want to learn it yourself. Color Me Safe Foundation is a family crisis management organization serving the greater Dallas area, and they've launched 2 new educational initiatives. One is called Ask Auntie, and the other is Sathi Support Group. Through discussion on topics such as generational and cultural gaps, cultural identity, mental health, bullying, and many more, these programs seek to empower South Asian children and families with the tools and understanding to overcome these shared challenges in a very supportive and non-judgmental space. You can contact Color Me Safe Foundation. And the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce have their Spirit of Innovation technology competition, and today they are having their business plan presentation. It is going to be from 9 o'clock till 1 at the Brookhaven College. For those of you who'd like to go there, this is in Farmers Branch, and you can get more information on their website, which is usicoc.org. And tomorrow from 3 to 8, Vibha's 18th annual kite flying festival at the Sound at Cypress Waters on Olympus Boulevard in Coppell. And we invite all of you to be there from 3 to 8 at the Sound Amphitheater in Coppell. On Sunday, Music That Feeds, a Hunger Mitao initiative and Evening of Melody with a Difference from 4 to 7 at UTD's Johnson Performance Hall. This month is being celebrated as Diversity Month, and the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce is pleased to partner with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra to promote Celebrate Diversity Night, and that will be happening next Friday, a week from today, from 6 to 7 at the Meyerson Symphony Center. And this pre-concert event features performances, light snacks, and drinks, and the pre-concert event is free, but you must RSVP to attend. And following this Celebrate Diversity Night, the Dallas Symphony Orchestra will feature a concert performance by Troupe Vertigo. And that, of course, you have to buy the tickets for. Hyderabad Society of North Texas is presenting Eid Picnic on Saturday, the 20th of April, and that's a week from tomorrow at the Travick Pavilion in Grapevine. And for more information on this day full of fun with the family, you can call Muhammad Hamid at 469-544-4118. Only a few days left until the Pratham Dallas Fort Worth Gala 2024, and we're excited to announce that limited individual tickets are now available. Saturday, the 20th of April at the Omni Frisco Hotel for an evening that ignites minds, touches hearts, and empowers futures. And during this evening, you'll be mesmerized by Vidya Vox's captivating voice and vibrant electronic soundscapes as she presents a special musical performance that blends tradition and innovation. And the keynote speaker that evening is going to be Krish Dhanam, a captivating speaker mentored by the legendary Zig Ziglar, and his message of hope and humor will ignite your passion for change, leaving you motivated, empowered, and ready to make a lasting impact. And all guests at the Pratham Gala are encouraged to incorporate a splash of Pratham yellow into their attire, and there will be a best dressed contest during the reception, as well as social media likes contest. And over the course of the evening, you'll indulge in a decadent meal crafted by our finest chefs and let the conversations flow with like-minded individuals passionate about creating change. Ladies and gentlemen, your presence at the Pratham Dallas Fort Worth Gala symbolizes a child supported with the opportunities needed to realize their dreams, secured the job prospects, and embrace a brighter future illuminated by the power of learning. So please join us for this. And if you need more information, I'm going to give you my direct number for Pratham's Gala. And my number is 214-675-1754. The India Association of North Texas is excited to share that they'll be hosting a fun meet for the community's seniors on the 21st of April. It's a Sunday, and it's going to be at the Russell Creek Park from 10 to 1. Senior citizens get together. There'll be yoga, bingo, karaoke, live entertainment, and plenty more, all presented by the India Association of North Texas at the Russell Creek Park on McDermott Road. And that's on Sunday, the 21st of April from 10 to 1. And you can get more information at iant.org. It is MTY, My Dream USA, in association with the Grand Center, presenting the celebrity guest Pooja Batra, the Bollywood actress, for the Miss South Asia World 2024 on Sunday, the 21st of April at 1 p.m. Also on Sunday, the 21st of April at 6:30, Bismil Ki Mehfil happening at the Sambuca 360. A World Meditation Hour where we focus on sending thoughts of peace and healing for the whole world. Remember that every individual can contribute to healing the world with thoughts of peace and love. 6:30 to 7:30 on Sunday, the 21st of April. And this is arranged by the Brahma Kumaris. You can get more details and registration information at bkrymeditation.us. EarthX 2024 Congress of Conferences from the 22nd to the 26th of this month at the Hilton Anatole. And we do have Jeet Ka Safar with the Amax, the champions 2009 T20 World Cup cricket team that will be here on the 26th of this month. And then on the 26th and 27th, Neetu Chandra is Umrao Jan Ada, based on the novel written by Mirza Hadi Rusma. This is a musical play in the Broadway style, and there'll be 3 shows, 26th to the 27th of April, Friday and Saturday, and that's going to be at the Dallas Music Hall, and your tickets are available at Ticketmaster. The Festival of Joy is happening on the 27th of April at the Clyde Warren Park, and you can get more information at festivalofjoydallas.com. And then the Festival of India, Dallas Indians Lions Club, inviting you to their 39th annual celebration on the 28th of April at the Atithi Banquet venue. Swami Vivekanand is coming to American public television next month. For the first time in American television history, PBS stations across the U.S. will show a new documentary film on Swami Vivekananda called America's First Guru, and that too a first by an Indian origin documentary filmmaker. We have Indian Idol's Intense Tour on the 10th of May at the Grand Center, and Unforgettable 90s with Kumar Sanu and Sadhana Sargam on the 12th of May. It is the band Junoon that's going to be in Dallas on the 19th of May at the Raleigh Underground. And the Holistic Festival is happening over 2 days. It's a 2-day festival on the 8th and 9th of June at the Plano Nature and Retreat Center, brought to you by Mystic Mandala. You can call Vijay for more information, 972-750-1419. Yeah, and the Badshah's Pagal Tour happening at the Curtis Culwell Center on the 14th of June, and Shreya Ghoshal will be at the Curtis Culwell Center on Sunday, the 16th of June. Nan's Vision is bringing a glamorous night with Shilpa Shetty on the 29th of June at the Grandian event venue on Parkwood Boulevard in Frisco. And that is your social calendar as it stands on this 12th day of April. The other thing that you all have to do is watch this movie called It is called Amar Singh Chamkila. It's gotten 4 out of 5 stars based on a true tragedy. The musical looks back at Amar Singh Chamkila, Punjab's popular but disgraced slain singer belonging to the ill-fated 27 Club. He and his wife Amarjot were shot dead in the late 80s by masked gunmen. The killings were preceded by anonymous threats directed at the singer for penning obscene lyrics that largely objectified women. Daljit Dosanjh and Pariniti Chopra play the lead roles. Imtiaz Ali, known for his soul-searching contemplative stories on love and self-discovery, steers away from his usual path only to truly find himself again. Through Chamkila, he deep dives into a tragedy seeped in moral policing, caste discrimination, societal bullying, and prejudice. Poignant, provocative, and poetic, Imtiaz's vision conjures vivid emotions, and the objective yet empathetic biopic compels you look inward. Are we slaves to survival? What constitutes art? Who gets to decide what qualifies as art? Does fame without respect matter? Should anyone be expected to endure a lifetime of hate and humiliation for their choices driven by circumstances? And finally, can you separate the art from the artist? We have a right to criticize, but do we have a right to ban something? Be it Tamasha's Ved Tara, rock stars Jordan, or Jay and Meera of Love Ajkal, Imtiaz's central characters are often nonconformist, sometimes even without being aware of it. They aren't rebellious by choice. The intent is to live freely, more openly, and discover a purpose along the way. And Chamkila is an able successor. He isn't heroic per se, nor dismissive of the society, but chooses not to get bullied into submission. Along with entertaining, the film makes a social commentary on the offline cancel culture of yore, that's the 80s and 90s, politics of religious radicals and repressed sensuality. It's a 2-hour and 25-minute movie, packs a lot and has much to process, given its non-linear storytelling, genre-hopping, docudrama, musical, semi-investigative, and political insight. Punjab is viewed as a state of excess, be it through its extreme love, passion, or control. The second half feels a bit repetitive, but A.R. Rahman's music in the background and Diljit's rustic vocals keep the momentum going, and the film belongs to the actor-singer as he delivers a career-defining performance and brings a perfect blend of humility, frustration, and angst to his part. While it isn't fair to expect Pariniti to match up to Diljit's singing, she has a likable presence, but her acting pales in comparison in many crucial scenes. The camera work, especially where the girls talk straight to the camera, stays with you, and the one-liners are hilarious. Given Chamkila's questionable reputation, unapologetic approach to life, the film doesn't glorify nor justify his actions. It merely allows him a chance to be heard. And this symphonic tale of survival, shame, and social standing makes for an immersive watch. Amar Singh Chamkila, 4 out of 5 stars. And ladies and gentlemen, that's my show for today. For those of you who'd like to contact me directly, let me give you my number. It's 214-675-1754.